we were talking just before the show, and I was running this poll on social media, and somebody actually, suggested this to me. So I thought that I would frame it this way. Guys, you've got the option of two twin sisters. They're both 30. They're both gorgeous. One's been married and now divorced, and she's got 3 kids, but her notch count is 2. She's only been with 2 guys. The other one, her other twin sister, never got married, partied through her 20s, traveled around, and racked up a large notch count. Let's say 50 guys. Which one would you rather have? Overwhelmingly, guys so far on that poll are selecting the single mom, which is unusual because when you invite a single mom into your life, now you're raising another guy's kids, right? Which is not a feature of what men are looking for in their own life, right? Like they want assurance of paternity, so they want to raise their own kids. So yeah, it's a very bizarre dynamic that's sort of evolving out of where we are and human nature.
Yeah, you talk about notch count, right? Body count, if you will.
Yeah.
And women would say, well, this is unfair. Why is it cool that a man be like a James Bond character, right? Well, look, they like that character, so it's not men's fault, right?
That's
But
that's what women choose. Yeah.
right, they choose that with overwhelming majority, right? They'll totally choose that.
Yeah.
And so James Bond can go and sleep around, but yet that standard, when men apply it to women, it's no, they want a woman who's chaste, who's not promiscuous. Is that fair?
Look, life isn't fair. Life isn't fair for men or women, depending on how you want to stack it up. And we could spend a lot of time talking about what's not fair to men. We could talk about how men rarely see their kids in divorce. We can talk about how it's more common for a guy's kids to be raised by his ex-wife's boyfriend, and he spends more time with his kids than he does. We can talk about a lot of stuff that's not fair.
And those kids are much more susceptible to abuse and mistreatment with not having their own father present.
I mean, like we could talk about how it's not fair that men are considered, success objects. Like there's this coined phrase, gold digger, right? There's not a lot of that phrase being used on the opposite sex. It's always used on women seeking men's resources, but that's fine. That is a feature of women's sexual strategy, because when you're pregnant and you're raising a kid, you can't go out and hunt. You can't protect yourself from, the big bad animals in the forest or the woods or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's men that have traditionally in the past provided that service. So yeah, there's a lot of things that aren't fair, but that's just the reality of how men and women mate select. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there today right now that are invisible to women on the sexual marketplace, absolutely invisible. And they're frustrated to no end. They say things to me like all the time, like, I'm a really good guy. I have a good job. I make $50,000 a year. I have a car. I pay my rent. I don't have any debt, but nobody wants to go out with me. Nobody even sees me. And that's the reality of that guy's life. That's not fair for him as well, but that's the reality of his life, right? Guys are expected to chase excellence, right? Like you cannot just resign yourself to mediocrity or to an average life, because women, because they're hypergamous, are always choosing the best guys.
Exactly. Yeah. It's interesting that women get to just show up and men have to earn.
Men are made, women are just born, right? Yeah. Like a woman needs to preserve her value on the sexual marketplace, which is not running around, of course. Right. A man needs to create his value on the sexual marketplace, because again, men compete, women choose. So men are doing the work, they're competing, they're going out there, they're doing all the difficult things. That's generally why they make more money, because they're taking greater risks. And that's okay. You don't want the mother of your kid to take great risks. You want them to be careful and protect your kid. Right. So that's why the sexes are complementary, but we've moved completely away from that. And, men and women have been bombarded with this message, and they're now completely drunk on this Kool-Aid of egalitarianism. Everything's equal. Men and women are the same. If you were born as a biological male, it doesn't matter. Call yourself a woman. You can compete with women and beat them in every single swimming event ever, sort of thing. So we have this strange, bizarre sort of thing evolving, and nobody's really doing anything to stop it. It just keeps kind of going in that direction.
Right. Right. The thing I would say that's really important for women to hear, or parents with daughters to hear, is, it's a key phrase, what you just said. Women need to preserve their value. Mm. And one of the ways they do that is by being prudish. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality of it. And I mean,
that's actually the reality of the way that it works in the rest of most of the world, right? Like the vast majority of the world, that's the way that it works.
And throughout history.
And throughout history, yeah.
Yeah. We just have somehow, the Western culture has just decided that that's not the way it works. Like in the last 30 years,
Got to
you
get
know.
those 2 toasters in the 2 house, my friend.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. It's crazy. So, what advice, would you have for men and for women? And men are the chasers, women are the choosers, as it's been said, right?
Yeah.
So, what advice would you have for each side there? Like, for example, when we talk about women preserving their value,
Mm.
how can a man find that woman, or at least know what kind of woman she is? Because they're never going to tell the truth, right? You're going to
Yeah.
have to read between the lines. And for example, one girl that I dated had been to over 100 countries.
Mm.
I mean, what do you think she's doing, right?
Well, that's
Like
a red
that.
flag. I mean, like,
Yeah.
traveling that much to me is a red flag. Somebody that knows a whole bunch of really important people is a red flag. Somebody that's, like, if you look at their social media presence and she's an attractive gal and you see her on private jets, yachts, sports cars, exotic car rallies, that's a red flag. She's been around. So, I mean, you're asking a lot of questions there. So, I mean, my advice to guys is to build their value, is to focus on themselves, make themselves their own mental point of origin, stop chasing gals, stop settling for mediocrity, chase excellence, not women, build a life for yourself. And when you are going to deal with women, be discerning in your taste. Right. Just because, a girl gives you some attention, responds to you and wants to see you again, or maybe, wants to claim you sort of thing, doesn't mean that you need to accept that. Right. I mean, the biggest decision that you can make in your life as a guy, or probably one of the most important ones, is who is it that you're going to invite in your life? Even beyond that, who is it that you might make the mother of your kids? Right. Because if she's made some bad choices in her past, and I've got this chapter in my book on red flags, and I kind of get into details about, some of the warning signs that guys should look out for, then that will give them an opportunity to sort of vet for that. Now, as far as what women need to do, they need to stop listening to this nonsense about everybody's equal and exactly the same, and recognize that the sexes are complementary and they're not competitive. And it's okay for women to be women and for men to be men. And it's okay for women to be feminine and men to be masculine. And it's okay. All of that's good. The key thing that women have to remember is that they need to preserve their value, like we said earlier. I mean, there's no guy that's ever looked at a woman, a gorgeous woman who's got 3 degrees on her wall, framed in the most beautiful mahogany ever, practicing doctor, surgeon, whatever, and said to their friend, "Hey, did you see the degree on that gal?" They're always looking at the optics of her beauty. Like the figure and the form of beauty comes in the looks, and that's what guys are looking at, and that's what they need to preserve and to protect. But we're not doing that anymore, so we've got this messed up sort of environment. There's no woman that usually shares her pot of gold with a guy, but guys, like, a very wealthy guy will change a broke woman's life, but a very wealthy woman won't even look at a broke guy. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here, and pin down below in the top comment, you'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.